Good morning. Thank you, Stan, for convening this after chat once again. It's a lovely habit you've gotten into. I'd like to welcome all our people who have come to talk about what they were talking about on Humanity Rising. Yet we are a group that have been meeting since day 60 of Humanity Rising. So some of us know each other. So this is an ongoing conversation. And every day we have a different subject. So this is, it's lovely to have you join us, Brian and Ipswa and Sally and Chantal and Catherine and everybody else. And so I want to open the conversation about today, perhaps by putting in to our circle, the idea that they brought in about Pan. I really enjoy the concept of Pan because I talk about the one that we are, the collective I inside every one of us. And in my heart, I see the collective I as being the green man or Pan, come and created to care for her and love her. And so I want to hear what you think of Pan and this concept. Or something else that inspires you from today.
When I think about the struggles of why is there not a lasting peace, I came out of the end of the Great War, right? And there was this great question about, how could humanity have gone to that brink, right? And never again. We just celebrated here in Canada Remembrance Day. That dialogue, remains vigilant in my heart. And yet I watch today, what's happening around COVIDity, right? And I see that the same tools around dominance, control, authority, power, right? Milgram studied these things, right? The impacts of wearing masks, how is it that here we are again, and the elders have said in prophecy, right? We would have 3 times through this cycle to learn our teachings and our lessons. So I see this as that third cycle in my way of perceiving, to recognize our inhumanity and our humanity, right? To recognize what is really, really important is what I said in my share today. COVID has given us an opportunity to pause in the world collectively. That hasn't happened since the Great War. And so the invitation, I think, is to do exactly what you're doing, to continue to ask the critical questions and to start to co-create different ways of being and doing in culture and in recognition of our women, and to listen to our grandmothers, to our aunties, because they have been charged most of the life intergenerationally to preserve and take care of the village life. It's part of their role. All that I know from the one source that I had in my life. She taught me everything that I needed to know about how to walk in this world. She didn't put up with half of the stuff that we see here and today. Here's the woman that taught me. Here's my grandmother. Here's the person I seek when I think about a challenge or a challenge of a struggle in my world. And she raised 32 kids through the wartime and after. She did not have a man to take care of her. She didn't fall into any of those stereotypes we know. She was powerfully awake and enriched. And I wish that all of you women would have had that opportunity that she had in life. And I would rather hear from the lovely ladies in this room, because I think you have more wisdom than I will ever hold.
Ipswa, thank you so much. I appreciate your point of view. And I want to hear from Sally.
Thank you, Ipswa. And hello, everybody. And Catherine, your hair has grown a foot since I've last saw you. I think the thing about, there's so much in this week and it's been tremendous, but what I keep hearing internally is about making space for women to do these things. Because my experience as a woman is, firstly, certainly in Little England, we had no spiritual training about the feminine, nothing, eradicated. And then my experience of then being a woman is either of being over-sexualized or forced into mother roles and free labor, as Andra pointed out. So there isn't the time for the women. And my kind of wish through my parenting was that I had a partner who would share my mothering with me, share my parenting with me. And that loss of the nurturing male in our societies is a huge part of my life and will be inherited by my children. Because I hear, as a really mean, nasty little part of me that hears the men talking about spiritual practice and spiritual pathways and spiritual ways, and they've never been open to me because I've had to work and do the cooking, the cleaning, the shopping, earning the money. And lots of us here in this group are able to be here because we're older and we're not, it's here, it's tea time to feed the kids. And I wouldn't be able to do it if I had small children. You know, just really simple things like that. That's enough said.
Thank you so much, Sally. I imagine 32 children would kind of cut into the spiritual practices. And so I honor the grandmothers who have done it anyway. Because we are called upon to do that. That is, we are perfectly placed in our families to give guidance and direction. I look at Mother Earth as mother, not father. I like the idea of Pan over covering her, helping her to be what she needs to be to her children, which is us. And we are moving into the place of Pan, helping our father to take care of our mother. And we move into the lover role as we awaken into the role that we are moving. And I love the idea of being a lover of Gaia. Others of me have had their way with her. And so I want to do what I can to help her recover. So that's why I'm here.
I think what Sally brought up, though, has been a conundrum in my life. Being present and waiting, but needing that invitation, that space to be created, to come forth. Otherwise, I've always felt like I was mimicking male aggression in a power over sense, and that just was not comfortable. I mean, it seems like it's perpetuating. And so there's this caught feeling, though, that the potential is there, but it has to be invited. There has to be that invitation, that reaching out from the male to invite in and be willing to listen, to partner with. It's not a power over, it's really a partnership. And that is something that's really hard for men to understand, that partnership. I think there's even amongst themselves, it's hard to find that balance, especially for white males. There's always this rank, this hierarchy that seems to flow among white males, and they honor that even when they know it's wrong. Even when they know that people who should not be where they are there only because they've been there so long and they somehow deserve it in the hierarchy, even though they don't deserve it from who they are or what they offer. And that lack of integrity around that is, because it's an unspoken thing, is hard to actually address, especially in the public sphere.
We don't want to do it that way. We want to walk shoulder to shoulder with the men. I've enjoyed that. And so would you feel more comfortable being invited rather than having to figure out a new position? I don't know. What about you, Chantal?
I definitely enjoy invitations more than inserting myself, whether it's with men or women. I find I can very easily go to observer space and listen, but it's not until I'm asked to speak that I do. And something that's been flowing with me lately is I heard someone speaking on Clubhouse about the kind of birth of patriarchy being linked to the rise of the alphabet and written word. And it just created a sense of relief within me, because I've struggled with writing and with whether in print or blog posts. And so when we talk about creating space for women, I think it's important to also consider for feminine ways of expression, which would not necessarily come in printed form or text, but more oral traditions. And the value is through lived experience, intellectual thought, and fancy words. So the idea that our institutions and what makes someone an expert is really within this system that does not have room for feminine ways of knowing and feminine ways of being, whether you're male or female. And so there's so much that awareness and wisdom that comes through intuition and lived experience and an actual connection that can't really be translated into words, and especially for me, it can't be put onto paper. So that's part of what has been flowing in my mind, heart lately. And when Shannon, you asked about Pan and the relation to Gaia, I was reminded of a conversation I had with a monk. He was a Hare Krishna monk, and he was explaining to me the relationship between Rama and Krishna, and that Rama is the feminine principle, and the idea that when we bring Rama into our kind of consciousness, it's about merging with love and gratitude. And when we feel like embody that love and gratitude, then Krishna comes with the spark, like more like the vitality and life force. And it just reminded me of that.
Excellent.
Yeah, thank you.
The notion of women and writing, some of the oldest poets are women. And throughout all our histories, there have been book burnings, burnings of writings, burnings of heretical writings, burnings of women's writings. And I put in the chat that we build our world from languages. So traditionally, painting, drawing, weaving, ceramics are all languages, and they're all codings, and they're all equally complex. So it's different times when different languages are valued more than others. But I can assure you that there were a lot of women's writings. And I also have a suspicion that in many of the traditions, especially the Hebraic traditions, the idea that women didn't write was a deliberate double bluff, because then the writings were kept and the traditions were kept secret because nobody looked to the women to be scribes and to be thinkers. And post-Alexandria, most of that has gone. It then went in the book burnings in the medieval times, and then went again here in the dissolution. So we have a lot of lost knowledge, but then we also have a huge amount of genetic ancestry and ancestor memories that we can tap into through our physicality. The other thing that just keeps coming through to me today is the knowledge that we have about ourselves and of how Pan, I think somebody said Pan is the oldest god, but bringing back, and I've said this, Stan and Catherine will have heard this before, but in the world of life and human forms, there were no male creatures before 300 million years ago. The first male creatures of any kind are marsupials in Australia, and they're only 300 million years old. Before that, every living creature was female. So we have this huge female a priori situation, and then very late male animals coming into that. So there's a distant memory of that at some point with Gaia, with all the mother theories, with the newness of the male coming in as the son and the lover, and that comes again through many of the myths. And has become our kind of dominant Western narrative. But the female that keeps coming through is therefore often suppressed and distorted. And certainly women do put themselves forward in situations and can be very pushy and very dominating, but they do it within paradigms that are acceptable for them to do so socially. So they'll do it through their clothes or through their nails or through very simple things that don't affect the greatest power structures. And then that's flipped back into being the sacred whore that women still control men through their sexuality. And there's a lot of paradigms through that. So it's, for me, it's a case of trying to pare back to archetypes rather than stereotypes, and then look for the connections between the male and female and how they've evolved from each other to each other, and trying to express that clearly so that people can access this information. And I'd really like to know how Ipswa would like to increase that narrative between the male and female. And then the other thing, which then I will shut up, is that throughout the week, I've heard talk and talk. There was a brilliant quote from Rianne, I think, saying she's never had a genuine apology from a man. Did anyone else hear that? Has anyone else picked up on that?
I heard it from someone. Yeah.
And then there was a panel that was to be a session about apology that I think I may have missed. Dan, I might ask you to send me the link for that. But I really wanted to know what the feedback was and how the men felt about the statement from the women that they have never felt a true apology from the masculine in our times.
See, first, Sally, words matter. So I would like to erase the "I will shut up" and then add the words "I will allow for a moment of silence." And to answer your question, I missed that piece. And for me, it's one of the most critical things that we teach in young male initiation, is to recognize the mother wounds that many of this generation carry that get in the way of that apology, that recognition of the disconnect that we have in this era and this time. So to any of you lovely ladies that are here, I do and sincerely apologize for the many wounds, the many times that you've been asked to shut up, to sit down, to not bother, that it's not your business, that you do not matter, that it's men's business, or leave it to the men. The horrific violence, the loss of the children, the loss of security, the loss of safety, the loss of place in our communities, in our homes. The despotism to have to not only do it all, but be perfect, be beautiful, and be available for consumption. The inhumanity that doesn't allow you the opportunity to fully live, as some of you checked in today, until into your elder years. That we failed as men to initiate the boys and the young men and the fathers and the uncles, and even now the elders. We have failed even our elders to help them recognize their role as elders in our communities. It breaks my heart to have buried my own niece of 11 years of age 2 years ago because she couldn't face the inhumanity of the world that she had to live in. The many murdered, missing Indigenous women is only the tip of women's struggles. Here she is.
Hello.
One of them.
Hello.
And so I'm sorry, first on myself, for not having been able to do the work as quickly in my life to wake up and heal some of those wounds within our men's culture, and to make space for you women to do your work safely. I'm saddened that even today we still have this dialogue and this need to make space for each and every one of you. My heart breaks when I have to bring those young men in and explain to them how much power and privilege they have in their very young lives compared to their sisters. So all I can do as one old man, as I did today, is try to give you some space to be heard. Like that man asked, what does the Indigenous knowledge say about this? The Indigenous knowledge says, listen to our aunties. Listen to our grandmothers. They have been telling you this for generations. Make space and heal the women so that we can start to heal our communities and create our culture. Initiate the young men. Disconnect them from the Nintendos and the videos that tell them to be gangsters, that teach them to have violence in their hearts because it's the only way they can feel powerful. Make time for them on the weekends and evenings. If men would do their work, it would be so much easier for you ladies. And I am sorry for that. I truly am. I know many of the men here, many men in the circle today do a lot that we can, as much as we can, to try to heal our men, to hold circles, to initiate the young men, but it's not enough. To recognize the women wounds and to recognize the father wounds. Recognize the ways I failed to not be present for my partners, for my children, my grandchildren, my granddaughters. My nieces. For me, this is about an internal transformation. The world has gone on and will go on for millennia. It's whether or not we will as a peoples. It's time for us to come back to being one-hearted. Oh.
Ipswa, thank you so much.
Thank you. You made me cry. Thank you.
Thank you.
Catherine, I see your hand up. Would you like to speak?
Yes, but I need a little Give it some room. What a sacred and beautiful thing you spoke.